Good morning, everybody. Thank you for those of you who showed up today, braved the roads, braved the weather. We appreciate you guys. I'm just going to ask you guys to stand up with us as we start this morning off with a new song, just declaring that death has no power over us, the grave has no power over us, but Jesus, he's the one who's risen. For God so loved the world, he gave his son. To bear the weight of sin, he bled for us. From heaven's highest place, from heaven's highest place, he took the fall. And there was just one life laid down for all. Sing out, death, where's your sting? Oh, and death, where is your sting? No grave, where is your victory? He's alive, he's alive, he is risen. Amen. Behold the vacant tomb that held our Lord. And that grave became the stage for heaven's glory. Oh, behold the risen King, and behold the risen King in open skies. Oh, he is the resurrection. He is the resurrection. He is the life. Oh, in death, where is your sting? Oh, grave, where is your victory? He's alive, he's alive, he is risen. No weapon formed against us will prosper. The gates of hell won't stand. Your church will rise from glory to glory in the name of Jesus. No weapon formed against us will prosper. The gates of hell won't stand. Your church will rise from glory to glory in the name of Jesus. In death, where is your sting? Grave, your victory. Grave, where is your victory? He's alive, he's alive, he is risen. Sing, death, where is your sting? In death, where is your sting? Oh, grave, where is your victory? He's alive, he's alive, he is risen. Amen. Man, I love that song, and I love to start the day with that, just declaring that he is risen, he is alive, and it's a thing to rejoice. I just want to welcome you guys again. My name is Davey Nelson. For those of you who don't know me, I am the, thank you, Steve. I am the worship arts director here at Kensington's Clarkston campus, and it's just such a privilege to be here with you guys this morning. We've got several announcements for you guys to start the day. First off, We want to let you guys know that we have a ton of groups. Yeah, you guys can go ahead and take a seat. Sorry, I do that every time. They even once put it on the screen because I forgot. We have a ton of groups that you guys can join. We've got a large men's group and a women's group. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the men's group, where they're going to be talking about and learning the 4 pillars of manhood. We have it up there. It's called Real Men. It's going to be 2 separate weekends. I know Julio, who is playing guitar here. So a lot of you guys know Julio. He's here a lot. He's going to be one of the leaders that's going to be leading this thing. So if you guys have any questions about how to sign up, how to get involved, you guys can see Julio at the end of service, or you can stop out at the hub, and then we've got some details up there. Oh, yeah, you can send them an email, clarkstonmen@kensingtonchurch.org. It's going to be a really great night, just discovering how to be the man that God has made you to be. The next thing we have for you guys is actually our care ministries. We really believe that life isn't, we're not supposed to do life alone. And oftentimes that tends to be the case when we struggle with stuff, or we have a life event that happens. And we have an incredible group of ministries for you guys. We have divorce recovery, Celebrate Recovery for hurts, habits, and hangups. We have just a ton of groups. For that, you guys can go to kensingtonchurch.org/care and see the whole list of things that we offer for you guys. And again, you can go out and see who's at the hub and ask for more information. The next thing, for any of you guys, if you guys are new here this weekend, if you're brand new, or you've been coming for maybe a few weeks or a few months, and you've still got a lot of questions about who we are as a church, what we do, why we do it, Discovering Kensington is a really great way for us to answer all of those questions. It's a safe place for you guys to ask any of those questions. We will have lunch provided. It's going to be after service next weekend, January 19th. After service. So if you guys are interested in that at all, again, stop at the hub. That's where all the information is, or you can find someone else in the lobby who might know. And the last thing is, at the end of January, the 24th and the 25th, we have our annual Kensington Move Out Gathering. It's back. We're really excited, and we've actually got a video for you guys to check out with all the information. Let's watch it.
Like a craftsman with their tools, we all have something to offer. We have been designed with a purpose and have opportunities to influence, encourage, and inspire those around us. And simply put, it comes down to identifying the answer to one question: what is in your hand? We believe the answer to this question lies in how God designed us and what He designed us for. If you have a desire to love and lead those around you, you won't want to miss the Move Out Gathering. We have Dave Nelson, lead pastor of K2 The Church in Salt Lake City.
What God is trying to help all of us understand, it's not about the job that we're doing. It's about the essence of who He's created us to be.
We have the privilege of hearing from Brian Peterson, a designer from Kia who started a nonprofit for the homeless of Southern California.
Usually, as we paint people, they go from like fans to friends, and then some become like family.
And Danielle Strickland, author, speaker, and co-founder of 4 organizations.
Love is a means by which you can unlock the kind of servanthood that has no agenda, which is so powerful.
There will also be several workshops to choose from. You are an influencer. You have relationships. You have an opportunity to discover not only how you were crafted, but what you were crafted for.
Yeah, so that's going to be super awesome, you guys. Again, it's January 24th and 25th. It's a Friday evening and then a Saturday morning session. It's going to be really awesome. I am. It's where I get my namesake, actually. And it's gonna be amazing. The groups, the sessions they have are incredible. We're all gonna be there from the Clarkston staff, so you guys will see us there. And registration is free. You guys can go to kensingtonchurch.org/moveout, register for free. We'd love to see you guys there. All right, I'm going to have you guys stand up. I want you to say hi to your neighbors. Squeeze in a little bit to the middle for anyone coming in late so they can get those aisle seats.
Well, good morning, everybody. That's a good start. Thanks for coming. I thought about 5:30 this morning, I thought I might be a little lonely today, but wasn't too bad, was it? How many people had a hard time getting their car door open this morning? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, so this is what I did. I have a 2002 Escalade. I couldn't get the doors open, but I was able to get the trunk open. So I crawled up over the back bench, and I couldn't put the bench down because we have a grandkid car seat in the very way back, and then two in the front. So then I climbed over the console into the front, and I was grabbing the handle, and I'm super athletic and flexible, as you can imagine. So I've got the thing, and I'm trying to kick the door open, and after like 15 kicks, it comes open. So I just want to tell you, I'm like the U.S. Postal Service. Nothing can stop me. Yeah. And it's funny because today, the topic of today's message is your life is a mist. Well, actually, it's more of like an ice storm because you just really cannot predict life. And one of the things that I want to talk about today is what kind of should be our attitude or our perspective about life. And we're doing this in this series, Sermon from the Seats. What should be our perspective since life is so short? Like, what do you focus on? Where do you put your energy? And I was reminded of this in a very, very serious way this morning because not only did I have to kick my door open this morning, but I woke up this morning to this photo. That's my son who lives in Montana, and he lives with 5 other guys. He's a metal roofer out in Bozeman, and he heard one of his best friends, Rob, yell fire in the middle of the night, and they had a 7-foot fire coming out of the fireplace. They live in this old house that would have burned down in a second. And somehow my son knew where the fire extinguisher was. He was the only person that even knew they had a fire extinguisher in the house and were able to put the fire out. So that was at 5:30 this morning, Detroit time. My point is this, and you think about all the circumstances of life. Life really matters. If you don't think it does, think about the people that you love and what would happen to you if you were to lose them. And so here's the challenge. The challenge is we are so tempted to live our lives obsessed and focused on things that don't matter. I mean, it's crazy. We worry about things, and then when something that really matters happens, for a moment, we gain perspective. Am I telling the truth or not? Yeah, this is real. And so in this, James writes this in the New Testament of the Bible. He says, "Come now, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a town and spend a year there, doing business and making money. Yet you do not even know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wishes, we will live and do this or that." I'm telling you, you could be completely disinterested in God, but man, are those verses ring true with every single human being? I have had the pleasure of 4 or 5 biographies that detail the history of my family. So from my mom's side, from my mom's mother's side, the Brown family that settled in Nashboro, Tennessee in 1745. And it was amazing just looking at that one line. And I've got the Radford line, I've got the Hill line, and people have written stories about our family, and some of them go back 10 or 12 generations. But in the Brown family, it was amazing. For multi-generations, the men in the families would live to be 60 or 70, sometimes 80, and then the next generation would die in their 30s. Then the next generation would live a long time, and then the next generation would die, people would die in their 30s and 40s. It was just, again, it was a harder time of life. My grandfather got great-great-grandfather got tuberculosis in the Civil War. He was in a prisoner of war camp. In other words, you just think about all of this life. So what really matters? That's what you got to ask. You look back at a family legacy. You look at the people you're investing in your life right now, and you got to be asking, if my life is short, how do I engage this life? How do I live this life? How do I see what God wants to do? And in the Sermon from the Seats last week was so powerful, was it not? Scott Newport's story, just unbelievable. Having known Scott long before Evan was born, we were grouse hunting buddies, did a lot of grouse hunting up north. And then to see him in this unbelievable journey of life. And one of the phrases that we used last week was, our groanings become our gifts. We talked about our pain becomes our platform, right? Well, this week, I really want to just say what is obvious. Our lives become our legacies. I just want you to remember that. Maybe take a screenshot of this, but you got to realize that the way you're living your life is going to ripple for generations. In fact, I meant to bring it up here. Let me show you something. It's really, really amazing. My grandfather was killed in a plane crash in 1929 when my mom was 4 years old. He was my mom's dad, and I actually have his day timer from sometime in the 1920s. I'm thinking around 25 or 26. And in it, he meticulously, just look at this. He meticulously, in some pages, recounts every single thing he spent. It'd be stamps, 10 cents. Presbyterian Church that Sunday, $1.25 in the offering. Food for that day, 55 cents. He goes on, a $5 monthly allowance for my grandmother, $5 for the month. What did she do with all that money? And in it, he has simple things that really shocked me. He actually had like a poem retrospective in here where it says, if with pleasure you are viewing any work a man is doing, if you like him or you love him, tell him now, don't withhold your approbation till the parson makes oration and he lies with snowy lilies over his brow. For no matter how you shout it, he won't really care about it. He won't know how many teardrops you have shed. If you think some praise is due him, now is the time to slip it to him, for he cannot read his tombstone when he's dead. He was writing this out just very carefully in his cursives. My grandfather, Chuck Radford, has been dead now 91 years. And I keep that, I carry this around with me because it's the things you think are important. Like, look at this, Ryan. This says, the day planner was compliments of engines and boilers. Some company from the 1920s out of Des Moines, Iowa. And you know what? Somebody probably thought that company was really, really important. And I haven't looked it up, but I imagine that company's long gone, don't you? But how many people do you think ran that company, thought that company is really, really important? And now it's just a mist, right? It's just a memory in people's minds. So what I want us to do today is to recommit to saying our lives are our legacies, and how we live really, really matters. I honestly cannot think of anything that could be more important than to determine what are the true priorities of our lives. Look at this quote from Francis Chan. This to me sums up so much of what I want you to think about today. He said, our greatest fear should not be failure. Our greatest fear should be of succeeding at things in life that don't really matter. Like you spend your whole life trying to do something and then it doesn't matter. I'm telling you, how many of us worry daily about our financial situation? How many? Anybody besides me? Every one of us. When you are breathing your last, you're not going to worry about it. You know, you might worry about money, and then I think my son just extinguished a 7-foot flame going up his fireplace in a house where he could have easily burned to death this morning. What's important? We've got to be living on what's important. And you know what's interesting? I just went this week to Mark and Callie's new property in Metamora. Has anybody been there? Some of you been there? Mark and Callie, I've known them for 33 years. And here's what I want to say about them. I don't think I've ever known two people more willing to follow Jesus Christ recklessly for whatever it cost. I also, when it comes to Mark, don't know a few people who've made many more mistakes than he's made. He's not perfect. But this adventure of saying the one thing that has never wavered is, I want my life to matter. That's how Mark and Callie have lived their life. It's truly remarkable. And here's what I want to say. When I come out and hang out at our campuses and I see the way so many of you are living, I think you're on this, okay? I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. I feel like so many of you are really, really investing your life in things that are so beautiful and so essential. And so I just want this day to be a reminder to say, whatever it is we're doing that matters, let's do more of the things that really matter. In fact, just as a little warning, just to not be caught up in things that really aren't that important, look at this headline, this California newspaper headline. A California man accidentally sets apartment on fire while trying to kill a spider. You have permission to laugh. No one was hurt in the making of this story, except the spider. But isn't that funny? Is that we can end up burning things down. I have literally almost killed myself in the car by trying to kill a spider or a bug when I'm driving. Because you can be distracted by things that are not important. And there's a story in the Bible of two sisters who face this dilemma. They have become these two amazing women have become the picture and the image of grappling this question of what do I live for? And the story that I'm going to tell you comes at one of the most epic moments of Jesus' life. This story begins actually the day after Jesus raises Lazarus, his friend, from the dead. Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. Jesus waits. And when he comes, he's already been entombed and wrapped. And Jesus calls him forth from the grave. It's an amazing story. Well, the story that we're talking about today is literally the immediate aftermath of that story. And this is the story. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, the home of Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. And there they gave a dinner for him. Okay, just stop for a second. You can't do justice to this story. This would be like, imagine that somebody in your family was dead or certain to die, and all of a sudden they're alive and healthy and Jesus has healed them, and then you have a dinner for Jesus. How would you describe that dinner? That dinner's going to be over the top. It's going to be crazy. And you're going to be able to feel the energy in the room. They're preparing a dinner for Jesus, who's the greatest person in their life. And it says they gave a dinner for him. And it says Martha served. And Lazarus was one of those at the table with Jesus. So Martha is one of the sisters. And she's serving the dinner. And she's probably got the gift of hospitality. She's probably a great cook. And she is so moved. If you go back and read John 11 and her encounter with Jesus when she thought Lazarus was dead forever, and then the change, the transformation, it's amazing. But then it goes on to verse 3. It says, and Mary, who was the other sister, not Jesus' mother, Mary, but Mary, who was Lazarus and Martha's sister, said Mary took a pound of costly perfume made of pure nard. And then it gets odder and odder, stranger and stranger. It says she anointed Jesus' feet and wiped them with her hair. Who does that? Who takes the most expensive perfume there is and I just want you guys to know, as I was grooming for today's message to be with you, I did a little foot bath for you and put perfume in my. I mean, this is weird. It culturally doesn't make any sense, but it does make sense to Mary because there's an image, there's a picture, and it says she anointed Jesus' feet, and then it gets worse, and wipes them with her hair. It's an image I don't even like envisioning. Do you? Because it's an image of complete combination of devotion and humiliation. What would be more humiliating, women, than, and again, remember, in this culture, women usually didn't cut their hair for life. So her hair undoubtedly was to her waist or beyond. And she takes this hair of hers, and Jesus is walking the streets of Israel, the dirt and the grime, and she washes his feet with her hair. It's just like, I don't even know what to do with this. I bet you nobody in this room has ever done that. If you did, I don't know that I want to hear about it. Because it's impossible to capture the joy and the love that's in this room. They have Lazarus back, and Mary is grateful. Martha is grateful, and Martha's determined to blow the roof off this dinner. Martha is going to show, Mary is going to show this devotion, and both out of endless gratitude to Jesus. But what's more stunning to me is the value of the gift, the humility of its application, and the utter abandonment of how she washes his feet with her hair. Again, people have written books about this, but it's a moment of devotion where she goes, okay, the thing, my most valuable possession, on the lowliest part of your body, and then wiping it with what is most symbolic of my identity as a woman and as a person, my hair. This is so intense. I can't get to it. The intensity, the room was probably electric. Now, just one little side note on this perfume. The Greek word here is muron, which is, you remember when the wise men came to Jesus and they brought what? Myrrh. Same thing. The wise men and Mary know something that's going on that nobody else knows. In fact, if you skip over to Luke 10, same story. It says, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. Now, this Luke's gonna open this up in a pretty neat way, in some ways that John doesn't even describe. But it says, and Martha opened her home, not Mary's home, her home. And she had a sister called Mary. And Mary sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. When Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. And she came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. And then Jesus says something so great. He goes, Martha, Martha. Whenever you say somebody's name twice, there's a tenderness, but there's also a lesson coming. And Jesus said, you're worried and you're upset about many things. And he says, but few things are needed. I want you to remember this today. I want you to take this home. I want you to write it down on a note in your iPhone or communicate it. I know some of you you're going to go out to lunch. You're going to go home with your family. Few things are needed. I want you to think about that. Go back as a discipline with your family, with your spouse, with your kids, with your parents, with friends, with trusted friends, and say, what are the few things that really matter in my life? I'm making a list of all the things that need to be repaired in my home. Isn't it amazing how that list keeps growing? And you fix one thing and another thing is ready to be prepared because so much seems to be needed. But Jesus says, few things are needed. Indeed, only one. And Mary's chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. The Greek word for distracted here is really cool. And I wonder if it describes you. I bet it does, a lot of us. This word, Jesus says, Mary, you're so distracted. Said Martha, you're distracted. She was distracted by all the preparations. The word distracted means to be overoccupied, to be so busy that you're distressed about everything you're occupied about. In other words, you got all this stuff to do, and so you're not just stressed about all that you have to do, you're stressed about the fact that you're stressed about everything that has to be done. Sounds like a young mom, doesn't it? Sounds like people that are serving other people. It's just endless along the way. I watch my two daughters and their husbands. They both have children, and we've had 6 weeks in a row of vomiting and flu and snot, of all colors. I mean, anybody else living our family's life? And it's never ending. You get over one thing, and it's the next thing that slams you. And it's so easy to become distracted. So what are the things that really matter? Goes on to say, he says, Mary, you're worried and upset. It means she's unsettled in her spirit. And I thought, when I'm unsettled in my spirit, you know what I do? I lie awake in the middle of the night. And I hate that. I hate being awake at 3:30 in the morning. I do. But I'm disquieted and I'm worried. Anybody else lay awake at 3:30 in the morning? Okay, I'll think about you this week. I'll think about you tonight at 3:30. Pray for you. Because I get worried. I get caught up in all the things that I can't, and most of them I can't even take care of. And I think of my grandfather, Charles Radford. Before he was killed in the plane crash, he was teaching a man to fly, Eureka, California, 1929. He had left three daughters, 5, 4, and 2. But it's so amazing that even then, I think, look back in his life, I think he was living for things that really matter. And I think you are too. But I want to challenge you to not get caught up in missing the most important thing, which is a life with God. To know your Creator. To live in contact with Jesus Christ, who the Bible says loved you with an everlasting love. Like we could do all these things and miss the things that really count. And by the way, I love the things that are going. I love this. I love Julio, this way to go on the real man. That's going to change men. Some of you men have never done that study. February 6th and March 12th, go do it. January 19th, Discovering Kensington in about, 8 days from now. Do it. Connect with people. Make the time to grow in this journey. Now, before I make the application here, let me give you one more. So we have the story of John and the story of Luke, and then we have an addition to this story. So back to John. It says, but Judas Iscariot. Oh, how many people know who Judas Iscariot is? Raise your hand if you know who he is. Okay, he's the bad guy of the story, right? He's a liar, he's a thief. What's interesting is, I don't know how bad he was, and in modern tellings of Judas, from Godspell to Jesus Christ Superstar, people make Judas a hero. It's interesting, in the modern world, we've turned Judas into a hero of modern storytelling. But the Bible doesn't paint him in that way. It says, Judas, one of his disciples, the one who was about to betray him, said, why was this perfume not sold for 300 denarii and the money given to the poor? Now, you don't need to know what 300 denarii means, but basically it was 1 year's average wage. Okay? Now, what does this mean to the story? Imagine you're going to work from now to the end of 2020. And at the end of 2020, with every penny you earned, you're going to buy a gift and you're going to pour it on Jesus' feet. That's extravagant. That's beyond extravagant. In fact, it's interesting. 2 years ago, a really good friend of mine, single guy, almost my age, comes to me and goes, man, he says, I've been so burdened about the Pocahontas and about Hope Water Project and about these people we love dying of dirty water. He says, I feel like God's told me to give half of my pension to Hope Water. I'm like, have you lost your mind? He says, no, I know it sounds crazy. It wasn't a huge amount of money. It was a lot of money. It was several hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I'm talking about a man my age giving half of his, basically what he had saved for retirement of his whole life, decides to give 50% of that to Hope Water. And I tried to talk him out of it. Because I'm such a man of incredible faith. And he did it anyway. And there's 10 to 20,000 or more Pocahontas that are drinking clean water today. Because this guy said, I think I can, with Social Security, he says, I think I can get by okay with half of my pension. And so someday he's going to stand before God, and it's going to be a party, and there's going to be tens of thousands of people come up to him and go, dude, I lived, and my children lived, and my grandchildren lived, because you cared about something that was important and eternal. And that's a radical illustration. But Mary's is just as radical in that she is preparing Jesus for something. And by the way, you go back to verse 6 of this story in John 12. It says, Judas said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. And he kept the common purse. In other words, Jesus and his disciples had a common community purse of where they kept their money. And he used to steal what was put into it. And Jesus said, leave her alone. She bought it so that she might keep it for the day of my burial. And you always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me. So first of all, let me be clear. Jesus is not saying that the poor don't matter. The scripture from Genesis to Revelation is clear that the poor matter, of us pouring out our lives for other people, investing our lives, caring, bringing justice where we can. All these things really matter. But Mary knew that it all began with Jesus. And I really believe this. This is what I see happening. Is that when Jesus truly becomes our number one priority, he fills us with purpose and energy and love for others like we have never had before. And he strengthens us in our discouraged moments to keep going. And he fills us with love. He fills us with purpose and plans and priorities, and then pours it out of us. And then our lives become a legacy. My mom was just up for Christmas, and by the way, I spoke at a couple of campuses, and then I didn't get to the Clarkston campus. A year ago, I had her here for Christmas Eve. She's 94. But everywhere we went, she just engaged in conversations with people, and it was amazing to me to watch her have Jesus conversations with people. At 94 years of age, she's just completely into people and wants to know their stories and wants to know how Jesus is working. My son was sharing with her one night some issues about concern about lack of justice, lack of fair wages for people in the country. And he was just, and my mom comes from a really conservative background, and he's talking about justice issues, and my mom just listened to him. And the next morning at breakfast, she goes, Jeff, she said, I was up half the night thinking about the scripture and its verses about justice for the poor. And she opened her Bible and started sharing with him all these verses that she'd been up in the middle of the night because she can't sleep either. And she's sharing with her grandson the scriptures of God speaking to her and moving in her life. Because she knows what matters, and because she knows Jesus, her life's filled with purpose. Every encounter is a divine encounter. That's what Jesus wants from us. And so, as we kind of move towards the end of this service, I want to share with you our sermon from the seats today. And the story we're telling. Last week, Scott Newport is a very close friend of mine. So the story you saw is the real deal. Nothing pretend. He's just a carpenter. He's got a lot of flaws, but Jesus Christ is using him. Elizabeth, today's story, I never knew. But this is the story that really was the genesis of this whole series. And it's an unusual story. It's a story told from the perspective of Elizabeth's friend, Jennifer. They were lifelong best friends. And Danny Cox is going to tell part of the story. You guys know, a lot of you know, he's our Troy campus lead pastor. But it's a story of two best friends who lived a very interesting life. Both of them were engaged to men to be married. And those engagements fell through. And as they turned 40 and early 40s, they realized that neither one of them was probably ever going to get married. And they'd always wanted to have kids. They explored adoption. Some of those explorations were too expensive. They tried to figure it out. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but both of them did procedures to be able to get pregnant and have children. That's how this story came about. They had done ministry in churches, loved students, loved Christ. This gal, Elizabeth, was a teacher, left a legacy and imprint on kids' lives. So as their dream of marriage never happened, in deciding this very unorthodox life, they both wanted to have a child, so they each had a child in separate instances. And that's how really this story begins. But what I want you to see is, what is the one thing? Like, what's the thing that really matters? So as we do this, the ushers are going to come down and receive the offering. And I want you to think about, as the offering comes forward, this is, again, part of the legacy of the movement of Jesus Christ in our community, in the world. God is, I just heard this from Don Anderson. He shared our staff on Thursday that we had a direct encounter sharing Christ in the U.S. And globally with 379,000 distinct individuals this last year. So when you give to Kensington, you're part of a movement of God that's touching lives everywhere in the world. If you're visiting with us, you're welcome to let this go by, but I will say it's really easy to do, and I've really learned something. It says, I just want to clarify something. It says if you go to our app, you can give in less than 10 seconds. I've actually learned that that's not true. If you're over 40, it's probably going to take you about 45 seconds to a minute and a half. If you're under 30, you could probably do it in 10 seconds. So I just want you to know, as you partner with us and you're engaged in life here, we are trying, imperfectly, to live about the things that really matter. So enjoy this story.
Liz was a beautiful mother. She loved it. She loved children. It was her lifelong dream to have a child. She adored Micah. She prayed over him. She loved him. She spent all her time with him, loved making him laugh. Relating to children, Liz just gave her all. Liz and I met at church we were attending. At the time, I was a youth pastor, and she was looking to volunteer and help out with the youth group. She played many different instruments, and she led the worship for the teens at that time. So it was probably, 25 years ago. Somehow 20 years passed, and you realize that she became your best friend. And most of it was due to raising how many youth coming through and relating to them and getting to love them together and being a part of everyone's life that you became more a part of each other's life. I was engaged, and we ended up breaking off the engagement. So I was heartbroken by that because I wanted to have children. And I talked for probably about 8 years about it. You know, she's like, if I ever get to 40, we're still gonna have children. Each of us can adopt our own children, we can help each other out. When she turned 40, we looked at adoption and found out it was outrageous. We talked to one of our friends who was a doctor, and she suggested doing it medically. Looked into it, and that was $3,000, much better economically. So we decided to go ahead, and both of us tried it. Liz was very unsuccessful at first. She dealt with a couple miscarriages and things like that. I, on the other hand, got Josiah. Then she got pregnant. She was due in August 2018. Everything kind of changed when we went for her mid-pregnancy scan. I went along with her and her mother. We were there, and they said, hey, I think we found something. It looks like you might have a cyst on your ovaries. We don't know what it is, but we need to look into it. We found out she had, in fact, had stage 4 stomach cancer. Around 20 weeks, she started to have to do chemo with the baby. It was one of the only chemotherapies safe for her. They had to deliver Micah early. He was born July 2nd, and he was healthy. Liz's cancer progressed, and we had decided to stay home and that she was going to do hospice in home. We wanted her to be with the boys and be with the family because she was concerned for them. She was concerned for her family. Her first and foremost thought was that everyone knew her heart for them and that everyone was right with God. She started getting sicker and sicker, so it was less time that she could spend because she became very, very weak. But she at least was at home where she could hold her baby and love on Micah. Danny came to visit Liz and I at the house.
I came in, shook hands, met everyone. There was 2 little beautiful babies there. The grandparents were there. And then Jennifer walked me down the hallway to see Elizabeth, which was her best friend. And we went right into the room, same layout as my childhood home as I used to sleep in, same exact thing. So I sat at the foot of the bed, I introduced myself to Elizabeth, we smiled, we talked, Jennifer sat down, and we just started talking. And we talked about life and Jesus. Elizabeth was in and out of consciousness at that point. So we just kept talking, and sometimes I'd grab her foot and we'd laugh and we'd have these conversations. And then at one point, Jennifer said, hey, we want to talk about the memorial service that we want to do. And the minute she said that, Elizabeth sat up in bed and she was so animated. Okay, this is what I want. And the service, I've already thought about it. I know everything. And she got so much energy. And at one point she looks at me and she said, listen, I don't care who does the sermon. I don't know if you're going to do the service or someone else. It doesn't matter. But I've already written my sermon. And this is what I want you to say. And she proceeded to go through her sermon, what she already written and what she wanted people to hear from her. And I didn't have anything to write down, so I'm like, oh Lord, let my memory hold these thoughts.
It was really neat because Liz was very weak. But of course, when you talk about Jesus, she became very clear-minded, very strong. She was able to share her strong faith with him and how much she loved her Lord. And it was like someone who came in that was an old friend.
When I got in my car and started driving, I thought, wow, I was really moved by Elizabeth. I think I cried most of the way home. When you see a young life, she's relatively young, late 30s, early 40s, and you see kids and you see these things, and then you watch someone navigate it so powerfully. I don't know if she knew how powerful she was in her weakest state.
The day of the funeral was really kind of a blur a little bit. Danny did the sermon. He did a beautiful job of sharing it.
I had the honor to say, this is not my message. This is actually the message that I got from Elizabeth, and I'm going to give Elizabeth's message to you today. And then I proceeded to tell the message. What I learned from her sermon was amazing, actually, because both her and her friend Jennifer were in ministry their whole friendship. And they were in different kinds of ministry, so they connected with all different kinds of churches. And one of the passions of my heart has been unity. And the first thing that Elizabeth said to me is, make sure you tell everyone that we are to be unified in Christ. God calls us to unification in John 17. And it resonated with me because I've been thinking about that so much. And then she proceeded to say two things that I thought really changed for me. That our life is a vapor. It's this mist. That's what Scripture says. It's just this moment that is here and goes. Make sure you spend your life on the right things. And then the last part was, what are you pouring your life out for? What are you giving your life for? And she got so passionate at that point, and she said, we have to give our life for Christ. That is the only thing worth our life.
All the time I've known Liz, I've learned so much about Jesus, how to give yourself to him every day and every moment, how to make Jesus a part of everything we do and include him in our thoughts and include him in our lives and include him in our relationships. She was a very peaceful, loving person. She gave everything she had, and she'd be able to get anything done and organize anything. I hear daily how people miss her. She was a school counselor, and I still get Facebooked from students that miss her and how they were impacted by how she loved them. More than anything, I want Micah to know that his mother was a woman of God, and that her desire was that he grew up to be a man of God. And not at age 20 or 30, but as a child on, that he could be a man of God.
Those kinds of lives and examples are the thing that actually have eternal value. Like, that shaped my heart. That shaped my life. I barely know Elizabeth. Still to this day, I hardly know her at all. But I can say that that moment and her faith changed me forever. And I was with her for what? 30 minutes of my life. And I'm different.
I always wanted to be part of the crowd because it was safe, but it's not worth it. It's so much more. It's more fun too. Plus you get what you want in the end. Hearing God say, you did what I wanted. You did what I asked.
I've had a couple of weeks to think about this, and being here this morning confirmed it. When I look at you, known you for years, known you since you began life as a human, I have been loved and blessed by people. I thought, what is the church of Jesus Christ except a place where people see each other and people express what matters? So when we encounter each other, we communicate in every way possible to each other that you matter. Like God cared, like I was just talking to this young man right here, thought you matter. You are of infinite value to God. And I thought the church of Jesus Christ was meant to be a place where we lay our lives down for the people around us so that our lives are daily expressions that Jesus is alive and Jesus is loving people through us. And this is an amazing way to live. My son's been on a journey where he's distanced himself from the church. A couple of weeks ago, we were together, and he goes, Dad, you know what I miss the most? He said, I've learned this. He said, I took for granted growing up in a community where everybody was thinking about everybody else. He's struggling with his faith. What he misses is the love and the service and the care of others. Like people looking out for you, going to give their lives for you. And this is what Mary was expressing to Jesus, anointing him, because Jesus said, he called himself the Son of Man. You remember what he said? He said, the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. I thought, what would be the life of Kensington, Clarkston? Just take this one community. If like every one of us said, we are going to live in conversations and relationships with each other where we just go. So I say to you, Ryan, I see you sometime and I see you after it's long. I go, so dude, tell me about your life. Tell me what's happening with your life that really matters. And that we're connected to things that are really important, and that at the center of every part of it, we're seeing that Jesus is giving us lives that have an impact into eternity. Because I'm telling you this, your life will be your legacy. The way you live about things that are important and not important. If you're whining and moaning and complaining about money constantly to your family, that's going to be part of your legacy. If you are envisioning a purpose in the beauty and the vision of living a meaningful life, believe me, it's going to be your legacy. And here's what Jesus said. Jesus said, I came that you'd have life and have it to the full. Not of the things that don't matter, the things that quickly vanish, but the things that are truly important. And as I invite Dave and the gang to come out here, I want to show them this. We did this illustration a few months ago here. Oh, that's good. It's my athletic skill once again takes over. That's why I can't live in Clarkston. I'm not athletic enough. Here, let's try it again. Oh, now it's really messed up. Here, come on, Ryan. Here. We did it. Okay. Do you remember this illustration that we did where he said, imagine that this rope is eternity, and it stretches into eternity past this way and all the way out to Ryan. You can imagine it going on forever. And our lives are how much of this story? Where's our life? Hint. Go ahead, say it out loud. It's the red tape. This is our life. And I remember, I've heard, we did this 30 years ago in our first year at Kensington. We actually did the rope thing. But Francis Chan, you can look it up online. He does an amazing, like just 5 or 6 minutes about this. But he says, isn't it amazing that we think about our lives and we'll go, man, I am so excited about my life. And now I'm 63. I'm trying to think about the rest of my life. I can't wait to give everything I have for this. I can't, like this section right here. And we're all worked up about this section right here when our lives are forever. Like there's so much music and so much message out there that says, live for the moment, live for the day. But you know what? That's what not knowing my grandfather did. He lived for a legacy. And even though he died at 29 years of age in a car crash, his whole life was about loving his devotion to my grandmother. We have 500 love letters that he wrote to her that are a legacy of our family. So in this really, really short 29 years that he lived, he's got a 100-year legacy of faith, love for Christ. I can look at his little thing and see his tithe gift of cash to the church every week. And he also gave to the Boy Scouts of America because he was a Boy Scout executive. He was giving to a local Christian ministries that were feeding people. I can look at that in the records that he kept. You see, he wasn't living just for here. He was living for the whole thing and for eternity. And so I think of my buddy Mark, as he was telling me a couple years ago that he was going to give half of his pension, 40 years of earnings that he had put aside, and he's going to get half of that. Was he doing that for now? Go ahead, answer me. He's doing that for a legacy. And here's what I believe. This room is jam-packed with people that want to live for the big picture. I'm just preaching to the crowd here. I know you want this. That's why you're here. That's why you came out on this beautiful, perfect Michigan day, to have fellowship. But I thought, what if you and I, every day we're together, like I was being with your mom and dad 3 days ago, every time I'm with them, I'm inspired to follow Christ. Julio, when I'm with you, Julio's disappeared. He's back here. Do the real, right? There's so many of you that we are inspiring, and the scripture says, spurring one another on towards giving praise to God and living for the things that really count. Don't live for just the dot, but live for the things that really matter, and let our lives be of praise to Christ. Isn't this how we want to live? Isn't this the way? Yeah, this is what we want to do. And so I just want to say it again. This community is known, this Kensington Clarkston is known for love and for care and for giving of yourselves to people. And I just say, let's just let it grow. Let's just let Christ grow, so the things that grow out of our lives and our families and our church and our work are things that last forever. That's the dream.
In the morning when I rise to meet you, in the morning when I lift my eyes, you're the only one I wanna cling to. You're the first thought on my mind. So let our voices rise, oh creation cries, singing out in endless hallelujah. From this moment on, join with heaven's song, singing out in endless in the moments where you go unnoticed, in the ordinary day to day, countless miracles of life around us point like arrows to your name. So let our voices rise, oh creation cries, we're singing out in endless hallelujah. From this moment on, join with heaven's song, we're singing out in endless hallelujah. In the evening when I lay my head down, in the evening when I close my eyes, you're still the only one I want to cling to, and you're the last thought on my mind. Man, I love those words that call to sing out an endless hallelujah, which is just like a prayer, just full of praise, of thanksgiving to the Lord for all that he is, of being in that moment where in his presence it is endless. It's that line of eternity that Steve was talking about. Let me say, even there's only a moment to live this life. It's not to focus on that moment. It's to focus on the weight of eternity. It's that weight of glory that's placed upon us. It's called to live that straight and narrow path, to follow Jesus. It's that moment where the kingdom impact we have as new creations from the blood of Jesus will transform the world. And Jesus' light will consume all the darkness. And I want to end the day, I want us to sing out this song called So Will I. And it's just a phenomenal way for us to just reach out to the heavens, reach out to the Lord and say, if all things created give you praise and give you worship, so will I. We will sit in this moment thinking about eternity as we give you the praise you deserve. God of creation, you're there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark, you fleshed out the wonder of light. And as you speak, as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. You, the stars are made to worship, so alive. I can see your heart in everything you've made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I. So will I. God of your promise, God of your promise, you don't speak in vain, no syllable empty or void. For once you have On a hill you created, the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. You sing it as you speak. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. And then you lost your life so I could find it here. You left the grave behind you so alive. I can see your heart and everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I can see your heart a billion different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. You gave your life to love them so alive. I can see your heart and everything you say. Oh, but what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
Love you, man. I really believe that every one of you in this room is a Charles Radford. Like Ryan, think about this, Nate. 100 years from now, your grandson or your great-grandson will be holding something of yours, thinking of your faith. Because I never knew him, but I knew my grandmother. She was here when we dedicated the Troy building in 1999. It was her legacy of faith that ultimately is what led me to Jesus Christ through my mom. And I want you to know something. Jesus Christ is writing a story in every one of your lives. And that story is of inestimable worth. And God will remember it and treasure it in his heart for eternity. And he's writing that story through you and me. There are no insignificant stories. I mean, none of you have ever heard of Charles Radford, but let me tell you, his life was important. And your life's just as important. And I thought, let's be about the one thing, Jesus Christ, his power, his love, redeeming lives, and us living and being the people that are there for others when God is writing a new story or new chapter in their lives, okay? Let's do that. Let's let Jesus Christ do that in our lives. So great to be with you. So excited for 2020. Let's let our lives be our legacies. See you soon.